Happy hump day to you. Welcome to the Wednesday edition of WWJD. Got a big show lined up for you today. A lot of stuff to talk about. But this was a sad day for college football. But the good news is the NBA bubble action is staying hot with a tight race for the ninth seed in the Western Conference. The WTF stat of the day today. Buffalo, New York hosted their first Major League Baseball game since 1915 yesterday. How the hell is I going to say 1915? Don't ask me. But 1915 yesterday, when the Blue Jays, who are using the minor league Bison Stadium, played their game. So, Buffalo, welcome to the big time. Let's move on to a WTF moment. NBA MVP Bucks forward Giannis Antetokounmpo was given a flagrant 2 foul ejected from last night's game after headbutting former Laker and current Wizard center Mo Wagner. It was a heated exchange, and Wagner was walked up to him as Giannis was walking up the court. Giannis headbutted him. Lost his cool. Didn't expect that. I think maybe the bubble life is getting to be too much for some people. Yesterday, the big brawl from over the weekend that seen the Athletics and the Astros do their best to throw down in pandemic situations, considering everything. The center fielder for the A's, Ramon Laureano, was handed a 6-game suspension, while the Astros hitting coach, Alex Citron, received a 20-game suspension for inciting and breaking everything down. But really kind of getting everything going. So it's crazy. On this date, in 2016, American swimmer Katie Ledecky set the world record time of 8:04.79 in the women's 800 at the Rio de Janeiro Olympics. Her 2016 medal tally of 4 gold and 1 silver made her the most decorated female athlete of all time. And if you Google this date and put in Major League Baseball, you'll see one of the best brawls that ever happened. It was between the A's and the Braves and the Padres. And the fever throughout Pascual Perez. And it was one of the best brawls. It involved bats. It involved players almost going into the stands, fans on the Brave sides getting into it. It was a fantastic brawl, maybe the best ever in Major League Baseball that we could see. And that happened back in the 80s on this day. I'll never forget that. Well, we're going to start in the world of college basketball today. And yesterday, what I reported on Monday and tweeted out Sunday night came to fruition, which was the Big Ten and the Pac-12 have postponed all athletic competitions, including football and basketball, until January of 2021. So we have to wait a few more months. Now, from what I've gathered talking to people in the Pac-12, I don't know too many people in the Big Ten, but I know quite a few in the Pac-12. Their medical staffs, doctors, they have some pretty damning and pretty eye-opening documentation about the potential risks of COVID-19, what it could do to players, not just after you have it, but the effects long thereafter, in particular to the heart. And that was enough for a lot of people. I mean, the Pac-12 voted unanimously. All 12 schools said, nah, we're cool. USC's athletic director, Mike Bone, said that once you seen the report, it was a no-brainer that you would really had to just say, yeah, for the best interest of the people involved, not just the players, not just the coaching staffs or people that are in and around the program, but also, their families. Yeah, it was a no-brainer, and that there's no way that they in good conscience could move forward with any type of season. Now, on the flip side, the ACC, SEC, and Big 12 have not altered their plans to play a full season. Supposedly, they're going to play a conference-only schedule. Now, the Big 12 I find interesting because they met yesterday and said they're planning on moving forward. And they actually have a schedule, which they released a schedule last week, but they revised it. So they did a revised schedule, and that should be coming out. It could come out as soon as today. There's a 12:30 press conference scheduled with the Big 12. And they're going to update where they stand with fall sports. Ohio State head coach Ryan Day backed his players' stance on not canceling the 2020 football season. Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh said, quote, "We will not cower," end quote, from the virus, and that it, quote, "can be controlled and handled," end quote, with strict rule following and protocols. Nebraska officials pronounced themselves, quote, "very disappointed," end quote, and suggested they might try to find a way for their students to compete this fall. There has been rumors that the Cornhuskers will try to leave the Big Ten and potentially head back to the Big 12 so they can play football this year, because they're going to take, I think, $100 million to $180 million loss. That's according to Scott Frost, their head coach. So what's next? Rumors have surfaced relating to the Pac-12 and Big Ten programs leaving their respective conferences for a season and joining the SEC or ACC in order to play out their seasons. If that falls through, the Big Ten and Pac-12 will explore spring football. Now, yesterday I was on a Zoom call with UNLV athletic director Desiree Reed-Francois, head football coach Marcus Arroyo, other media members, and members of the UNLV faculty, their women's head basketball coach, head softball coach, and volleyball coach, or excuse me, soccer coach. I apologize. And in there, athletic director Desiree Reed-Francois said that UNLV plans to use the fall as basically their spring practice, and they're going to, and I asked her directly, what medical research they had. Did they have their hands on? Were they able to get their hands or use the same research that the Pac-12 and Big Ten had? She said no, they had their own doctors and people in the medical field, dermatologists and other people that in other documentation that the NCAA provided, and they independently obtained as well. And that she said at the end of the day that their best interest is they're looking out for the kids and the players and the coaching staff and their families and everybody involved with the school. And that's why they felt moving fall sports to spring was in the best interest of the school. So they said they want to use fall as their spring ball. And I asked her again, I followed up with, do you plan on, like, what's going to be the turnaround time then? So if you play in spring, what would be hypothetically the dates, and how much time would you have left to play fall for these kids, these players' bodies to recover? And she said they're still looking into all the data, and they're gonna do their due diligence, and when that time comes, she'll release the information. She was very transparent, as was Coach Arroyo. I asked him directly how this, being a first-time head coach, how this affects what he had, planned and scheduled, because I know he's extremely organized and detail-oriented. And, he admitted that it's been challenging. He admitted that this has been somewhat tough. But he also said that it's hunting season and they're out there recruiting. They're out there on the hunt when talk about recruiting. And I said this yesterday on the show and to other people. I think this has helped him because now he's able to, he has really a full year of just to recruit. And with all the facilities in the stadium, in the new uniforms, you're looking at a guy who will have almost half of his team, his recruits, by the time he takes the field, if they don't play this year, if they don't play in spring. Now, if they do play in spring, obviously it's different. But if they don't, by the time he's he takes the field, almost half of the team will be his guys. That's unheard of. That is unheard of going into year one of your coaching career. It's almost like when the college in Alabama, I'll say Alabama Birmingham, discontinued their football team for a year, but there was a uprising, so to speak, and the coach they brought back and they allowed him basically to recruit and build a program from scratch. Again, I believe they went to a bowl. So, and shortly thereafter, I think within like 2 years. So this could be a good thing. I get the long-term ramifications of just everything. I understand it. I get that we all want to see football. Believe me, I said it yesterday. Nobody wants to watch it more than me. Trust me. I'll watch ESPN. I'll go on ESPN on the ESPN app just to put on old games from last year, the year before, 20, 30 years, the 80s. That's how much I love it. You know, yesterday on that Zoom call with UNLV, Drew Techman, UNLV's defensive back, was very outspoken when he said, yeah, he was hurt and he was disappointed and it sucked. 100%. And I don't blame him. I would be too. Something I've worked my ass off, and he's coming back from a torn ACL. How many other people can say that? The kid is honest. So for him, this really sucks. It's really brutal. And then you look at the other athletes like Desiree Reed-Francois spoke about one of the other sports, a girl who has aspirations of being an All-American and going into her senior year. She gets on the Zoom call with Desiree on Monday when Mountain West announces they're not going to move forward to playing ball in the fall. And the look on her face and the devastation. These are people's dreams. They work their asses off to get to a certain point, and then it's, sorry, can't do it. Don't blame them for being upset. Now, I don't know if there's going to be a mass exodus of people in the Pac-12 and Big Ten leaving to go to other schools. I do know that if my son was playing in either conference and he was projected in this draft, he was a junior, or senior, or a redshirt sophomore, and he was projected in this draft to go top 2 rounds of the NFL draft or the NBA, bring your ass home and train. Now, if he wasn't projected to go in the top 2 rounds, I would advise him to stay at school, stay in the bubble, at the facility, train, eat, do everything there because that's the safest place for you. That's something UNLV is doing. The facilities for the football players are open. They actually had a practice on Tuesday morning, a controlled practice. So there are things that they are able to do. There are things that they can do. And the school is there for the players. They're not going to okay, go home and we're shutting it all down. Nah, it's not happening. They're literally there. They're hanging out. They're working with them. They're working together. And I think that that's a good thing. That's showing exactly what you're about. You have their back. One of the things that I think the NCAA needs to do needs to essentially, especially for the schools that in the conferences that opted to not play ball in the fall, and if there is no senior season for those people, this year is a wash. They get accredited the year. So if they decided, they being the players decide to come back, the NCAA says, okay, you're going to have to expand the rosters and increase the scholarships for at least 3 years, possibly 4. Honestly, it's not fair to those dudes. Some people need that tape. Some people break out. They made a jump from their junior year to their senior year, and they're on that. People want to see, scouts want to see whether or not they made the same type of jump or trajectory. So I do think the NCAA is going to have to break bread. Honestly, they make way too much money and have way too much money in reserve. And there's way that they may have to trim some fat off the cow at the top. They may have to trim some fat at the top. Some of those people getting paid millions of dollars, that's quote unquote making decisions, but are they really? Those guys are, and those individuals are gonna have to take pay cuts. Some people are gonna be fired because you cannot have your student athletes who you care so much about, NCAA, you cannot have them thrown to the wolves because you failed from a leadership standpoint to be prepared and to have some type of plan in place to ensure a season would have taken place. Now, I'm not going to get political, but I'm going to say this. Don't be pissed off at the conferences for deciding to play it safe. Don't be pissed off at the conferences for canceling fall sports and competition. You can't be. Be pissed off at the people that's calling the shots and the people that don't want to wear masks and the people that aren't trying to follow simple rules for the past 5-6 months. Be pissed off at them. That's the reason, in part, why we don't have a college football season and other fall sports. I'm just being real. So let's move to the Golden Knights. Now they played the Blackhawks yesterday. Chris Gallick has a really, really good article that's out on Franchise Sports Media recapping the game. Very detailed. The Golden Knights last night beat the Blackhawks 4-1, and it was a game where the first period, VGK really dominated the period. Shots on goal, the way they controlled the ice, everything about it. They did a fantastic job. and then first period was nothing. And then all of a sudden, second period starts and the scoring gets going. It ends up being 2-1. And finally it's 4-1. That's how the game ends. And they dominated the Blackhawks from beginning to end. They utterly just took them apart. I love it. And the reason why is this Golden Knights team is deep. I mean, their fourth line is as good as some teams' second lines. I absolutely, positively see why they are the odds-on favorites to win the Stanley Cup. This is in year 3, folks. That's just how special this team is. And I know this much. The way I look at this whole, the way the NHL allowed the Golden Knights to be built, and what's going to be crazy is when the Seattle Kraken have their expansion draft, the Golden Knights don't lose any players. They can't have their players taken in this expansion draft. That's only the other NHL teams, because the Golden Knights are only in year 3. So they're going to be just as good, if not better than most teams, because that's in the last 4 years now, you're starting to dismantle some of those teams. Now, that is good for teams that have a issue with the salary cap. And if Seattle's smart, they can do what McPhee did, which was take on some salary, but trade for them and get a higher draft pick. So you're able to accumulate draft picks and move up. So I really like that. Really like that. Good for them. And I'm excited to see what happens when they get back on the ice. It was, oh man, I watching it was I think the big thing going into the game was who's going to play goalie. And Robin Lerner started in goal, and that wasn't a surprise. I believe he should start game 2. I think he's been more consistent. He's 6-0 as a starter for the Golden Knights. I thought he played really, really well. Now, they play again on Thursday. They play again tomorrow, 2:30, and that's on NBC Sports Network. If you stream, it's on the NBC Sports Network app. And then they play again Saturday and then Sunday. So I'm not saying they're going to sweep them, but they really could wrap this thing up by Sunday if they play like they did last night. Riley Smith, he played a hell of a game last night. Scored 2 goals in the third period alone. Almost had a natural hat trick, which that doesn't happen too often. I've seen it happen a couple times, but I haven't, it doesn't happen often. It's like hitting for the cycle in baseball, but like your home run's a grand slam. Or hitting for the cycle and you hit a single, double, triple, and then home run in that order. Like that's, I think, a natural cycle. That doesn't happen that often either. I only remember that happened a couple times. So Woj dropped a Woj bomb today for ESPN. I don't know if you guys seen it. The NBA released the guidelines on guests starting after the first round of the playoffs. Now, these are the guidelines for what NBA players, coaches, team officials. This is who can come. Okay. 4 guests per player, but it can be exceeded for children. So let's say you have 5 kids and you're married, then guests can travel on team charters following testing. Guests will be allowed to attend games. So we will have some fans. Players will be allowed to bring in family and, quote, established long-standing personal friends, quote, into the bubble. Player guests can be quarantined in teams market for 3 days, travel to Orlando, and then again for 4 days, or travel directly to Orlando and quarantine for 7 days there. I'd probably go straight there. Nah, I'd stay home for 4 days and then head over there 3 days. Each player is allowed 1 ticket per playoff game for a guest, plus an additional admission for a child, 32 inches or below. So is this a ride at Disneyland? Like, okay, now, honey, you can come, and little Joe, yeah, because okay, you're 31 inches, you can, but Peanut, you're 36 inches, you can't come, buddy. Sorry, you're a little too tall. I know you're only 3, but you're a little too tall, buddy. Sorry. Now, here is who is not eligible to come to the bubble as guests, per the memo that was given to Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN. Quote, any individual the player has not previously met in person or with whom the player has had limited in-person interactions, for example, known by the player only through social media or intermediary, end quote. Basically, you internet thoughts, your IG models, your internet honeys, your who was. Keep your stank asses at home. It's a family environment. But this is the one I find extremely interesting. Among those also not allowed as player guests per the memo, current or prospective staff or business relationships, including agents, trainers, massage, physical therapists, personal chefs, and tattoo artists. What does that mean for Rich Paul? Rich Paul has been a long time friend of LeBron James. That's an established relationship. What about Maverick Carter? What about the other dudes a part of LeBron's camp? I'm speaking just for about LeBron. Don't think LeBron's the only one. That's what I don't understand. And I'm curious, does Rich Paul fall into that category? Although he is an agent. The amount of tampering that could go on there between agents and players, if they were down there, be crazy. But to take it one step further, if you thank God they're not letting Instagram thoughts down there, because the amount of tampering going on with that would be even worse. Sheesh. Go check out my Twitter feed and see the interaction I had with Tony Cardasco today regarding this. It's kind of entertaining. It involves Carolyn Baskin, Kylie Jenner, the Kardashians. Yeah. That I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with the bubble. Baseball's thinking about going to it for the postseason. Essentially, that's what teams in college football are doing. They're trying to say, hey, we can create a bubble environment for our football team. But I'm going to say this. It kind of hit me with when I said that with the football team. It just kind of popped in my head. If you're going to do all these mandated tests for players, what are you going to do when you let the other students back on campus? Are you going to test them the same way? Dead ass serious. Are you going to test them the same way? I don't understand. I mean, oh, I get wanting to play. And the NBA, they're also going to allow teams to add 2 staff members on August 22nd ahead of the conference semifinals. That's big for the Lakers in particular because not having Lionel Hollins there has, I think, really hurt them. That's big. I like that one. Again, the NBA got it right with that. Thankfully. But are you going to test the students? I don't understand how they could not. And are you going to isolate them for a little bit on campus? Because people are going to turn up there. If schools let kids back on campus, right? Schools let the kids back on campus and they start going to class. Are you going to tell me? You're going to look me dead in my grill and tell me, and I'm 18 to 22, 17 to 22, that I can't go party? Are you going to tell me that I can't go have some fun with a female or females? That I can't have them come to my crib that I'm paying my money for in an apartment if I'm not an athlete on Scully? And if I'm an athlete, you're going to tell me that I can't have female guests over to my spot while I'm chilling with my roommate, my teammate? What if you did everything right? What if you're the athlete, you go there, you rent your house and you go to your crib and you have one roommate and the only thing you do is you go from your house to the facility back to the house. That's all you do. You stay in your educational center inside your football facility. That's where you take your classes. They're all online. You're there to get help from the staff that helps the football team, educational staff. You come back home and you come in, you take a nap, and you get up, you go to the kitchen, and your roommate's in there with 3 chicks. What are you going to do? What would you do? You're in your house. You're minding your own business. And what would you do? Would you, no, you got to leave? Mind you, these guys may not have seen women in the last 2.5 months. And he's like, nah, bro, not good. Come on. This is such. They're big fans of yours, bro. Come say what's up, bro. Come on, Brody. I'm just saying. You're 17 to 22. What are you going to do? Don't think like a 40-year-old. Don't think like a 30-year-old. Don't think like a late 20-year-old. Try to put your mindset back to when you were a teenager. What would you do? Don't be logical. Man, you're going to hang out, chill, and do whatever and whomever comes to mind. That's the dangerous part about this. If you don't basically bubble the schools, things could get very, very dicey. That's part of what's wrong with the SEC, Big 12, and ACC still opting to play. And I've been saying this. Geographically, look where most of those schools are. They're in areas that aren't taking COVID-19 seriously. I just got an email. I'm going to read you this as it came in. Wow. Okay. I'm 43 years old. There's been a few shows, TV shows in my life that I've really, really, it's touched me and I won't miss. For me, it's must-see TV. One of those shows growing up for me was The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Now, backstory about it. When that first came out, my mom had just married my stepdad. I had just moved with them away from my grandparents in an area that I didn't know anybody. Didn't know a soul in La Crescenta, La Cañada, Pasadena. I didn't know anybody. And I moved with my mom. And within like days, within a week, the show aired. And I liked Will Smith. I still do. So I start watching the show. And I don't miss a show. I don't miss an episode. It was must-see TV for me. I believe it was on every Monday or Tuesday. But then it was Mondays because it was after Monday Night Football. But then the show went off the air. Ran its course. Will Smith went on to become a mega star. I think bigger than anybody would have ever imagined. And by all accounts, from everybody that I've interacted with that has come across him, a phenomenal human being. Well, news just came down. I'm going to read this to you. There will be a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reboot, and it is in the works. Now, the Hollywood Reporter says, quote, Bel-Air is described as a dramatic take on the beloved 90s comedy that catapulted Will Smith to stardom over 6 seasons, starring as a street smart kid who moved from West Philly to Los Angeles, Bel-Air neighborhood. With re-imaged vision of Bel-Air, it will dive into deeper and the inherent conflicts, emotions, and biases from what it means to be a black man in America today, while delivering the swagger and fun nods to the original show. Now, Will Smith will not star as a lead character, and it's not as lighthearted as that series was. Peacock, Netflix, and HBO Max are among the streaming platforms that are currently bidding to buy the potential series. Now, some of you are saying, Joe, why are you talking about that? Who cares? It's not sports related. No, it's not, but it's relevant. It's relevant because I'm tired. I don't know if you guys feel the same way. I'm tired. Like, don't reboot something and make it completely different than what it was. What made the Fresh Prince of Bel Air a dope ass show was the fact it was lighthearted. They touched on issues, but they didn't make it so serious, and it was clean. It was wholesome. Like, that's my problem with TV today. That's why I think I watch more sports than anything, because I'm sick and tired. I'm sick and tired and drained of reality television. Every TV show is about the same things, and it has to be over the top. It has to be over the top violence, over the top sex, over the top morality, whatever. I miss shows like the Bel Air, Cheers. And I know what I'm going to say. People are going to, I know, but everything but the Cosby Show, A Different World, Night Court, Different Strokes, Three's Company. I remember people would be pissed at Three's Company. Why is a guy living with two women? Oh my God. Now it's like, if that was in today's world, he's banging both of them. They have open relationships and whatnot. But back then, I remember that Private Benjamin. And then you had like the dramas, the night soap operas like Dallas. Like my family never got into Dallas, but I remember I would like watching the opening scene where they would fly over this Cowboy Stadium. I don't like the Cowboys, but I thought it was a cool thing. It was football related. But for me, that's why that's why that's why I watch sports. That's why it's I guess it's important for me to watch sports because I'm tired of seeing that stuff. I mean, again, I've been watching documentaries left and right, and I may just because I go binge watch the 6 seasons of The Fresh Prince. I'll tell you what, there was 2 episodes that got me, that made me cry, and I'm a crier. Let you guys know, certain shows or movies will make me cry. No matter what, I watched The Green Mile. That gets me every time at the end. When the movie with Bruce Willis and he's a and Ben Affleck and he has to save the world, he has to go in the meteor and blow it up. Armageddon gets me every time. But the 2 episodes of The Fresh Prince that got me, probably the same 2 that got you if you're a fan of the show. The one where Uncle Phil tries to warn him about his dad, and his dad comes back into town and made all these plans, and yeah, we're gonna do this, and then he up and sleeves him. Oh, I got a gig, I gotta go. And the other was the final episode. The final episode got me because I was 19. And in the show, it was about the same age, roughly, maybe a little bit. He was a little bit older in the show, a little bit older, as Will Smith was. And it was almost like I grew up with him on that show. And that's what it felt like. It felt like a lot of the things I would go through or I was going through, I could relate to him. Moving from another city to a foreign place where you don't know anybody, where most of the people have a lot of money. You don't come from a lot of money. And you try to fit in and you want to find your way and you're kind of the clown, but you have specific, you become popular because it's who you are, because you stay true to yourself and you're good at certain things and people notice that. But I'm telling you that it was, I could relate to him. So when that show ended, I felt like my childhood ended. A big piece of my childhood ended. My teen years ended for damn sure. They're going to reboot that. Just call it Bel Air. Now, one of the shows I do like that's out, it's called All American. Now, I don't watch it on a weekly basis because I'd much rather spend 2 days binge watching it on Netflix or Hulu. We know Netflix. Much rather do that than watch it every week. Because I want to know what happens. And that's what I did. That's what I did in February, March. Got caught up on season 2. That's a good little show right there. If you haven't seen it, that's another one to binge watch for a little bit. As my friends, the geese fly over me. It's going to be a hot one, folks. Just make sure you guys are staying hydrated, please. Raiders open training camp today. Media is a lower night. Oh, it's been open up to media, so media is there. Vinny Bonsignor, Paul Gutierrez, the go-tos for that. Vic Tafer. The go-tos. If Q was there, I'd say Q. I wonder if Pritch and Clay's there. Are they? They're not. They're probably in the studio doing their show. So, one theory came out about college football and about the way that college football is, really the Pac-12 and the Big Ten, what they're doing about postponing their season to the spring. One theory is they're doing that so players can't transfer because technically they're still having a season. So, I don't know. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case at all. I think it's more of they're. I want to believe, at least I should say, that they're having the kids' best interests at heart. Last night in the NBA, huge moment. Now, the Clippers and Blazers kind of got into it. Really, Dame Lillard with Patrick Beverly, and then he clapped at Paul George. on social media, on Instagram, whatnot. Basically, the Clippers tried to lose purposely. They didn't play Kawhi Leonard the other night against Portland, and then they sat Paul George out the last 5 minutes, but somehow they came back and beat the Blazers. And you're probably asking, like, why is this a big deal? Well, Patrick Beverley was just acting an ass. I mean, literally acting an ass on the bench, waving, doing. So Dame Lillard says, just remind him that I sent his ass home. And then somehow Paul George got involved, and Lillard clapped at him, calling him weak and soft, and said, I sent his ass home last year too. And I didn't have to jump ship to try to go win a title. Basically calling him out, saying, you knew you couldn't do it anywhere else. So you chose to leave Indy and you chose to leave OKC to go try to create a super team with the Clippers. Paul George's girlfriend, or excuse me, wife, called Dame's sister basically fat and ugly. She clapped at her for being a stripper, and then Dame got in it talking about his stripper wife. Because if you don't know, Paul George met his wife at a strip club in Miami, has a baby with her, and at one point questioned the paternity of the child. I say all this because the following night, Dame Lillard busts somebody's ass for 51. But last night, he hit for 61. In the fourth quarter alone, up until CJ McCollum hit 2 free throws to ice it, he scored or assisted on 32 consecutive points for the Trailblazers. Now, Lillard's only the second player to have 3 60-point games in one season. Now, they will play the Brooklyn Nets tomorrow and we'll have to win to have a play-in series for the A seed. Now, it could be against the Suns, who are 7-0 in the bubble. It could be against the Grizzlies, who have just fallen on hard times. Or it could be the Spurs. The Spurs are gone 5-2 in Orlando. The Spurs, if they don't make the playoffs, will be 23 consecutive season. But they're under 500. They're 32-38. I want to read you part of what this Lillard, Paul George, and it's not a beef anymore. Let me point this out. Chris Haynes from Yahoo pointed out that they already met and squashed everything. Paul George called Damian Lillard's shot last year. It was a 37-foot bomb. It was a dagger. It was a walk-off. And the thing is Lillard and Westbrook clap at each other a little bit too. He hits this and just waves goodbye. So he walks off. And then he gives you that look in the camera like, for real? It was the best because they bring the camera there and he just looks at it like, okay. Paul George called it a bad shot. Lillard said it was bad defense. Now, the Clippers won, and it happened Saturday. They won, like I said, 122-117. Now, Patrick Beverley, who actually sat the night out, was just this is relentless. He taunted and jeered him from the sidelines. Mind you, Lillard shoots damn near 90% from the free throw line, 88.9, so 89%. And he missed 2 free throws when the game was over. Like it was tied and there was no time left on the clock. So Beverley basically mocked Lillard's celebration. And then after the game, Lillard reacted to Beverley's antics. Like I said, he reminded him that he knocked down a similar series clinching 3-pointer against Houston back in 2014. So Lillard, Pat Bev said Cancun on 3. And then YG Trice, okay, that if you don't know, that's Paul George. That's his Twitter handle. Said, and you getting sent home this year, respect. It was on IG, I should say. Dame Lillard claps back, says, keep switching teams, running from the grind. You boys is chumps. So then Paul George clapped back by saying, respect that too. In my stint with my first team, I had more success. Dame time running out, G. So then Dame Lillard comes back. Suckers pray and pray on my downfall, but every time I hit the ground, I bounce up like a round ball. With the picture of him right before he hit that shot over PG-13. They went back and forth a little bit more. But it became apparent. That somebody had to get in there and squash it all. But it goes to my point, and I stick to my point when I say this. And I've said this on the 70213 podcast. Talked about it. That's on the show that'll be airing later today. Patrick Beverley is overrated and an instigator. And somebody gonna bust his ass one day. Dame Lillard is the best point guard in the NBA right now. And I don't think Paul George or Patrick Beverley would have that same energy towards Dame Lillard if he played on the Lakers. Because it would be, okay. It's you, LeBron, and AD. Okay. I'm sorry. Bruce Feldman, one of the best college football reporters, is reporting that the Big 12, for Big 12 teams to have their schedule, it's expected to open up with non-conference opponents. That would either be on September 12th or the 19th. The conference schedule is set to begin September 26th. Formal announcement will happen today. The NCAA, their D1 Council is meeting today and will work on eligibility details this week. The vote will happen next week. So we'll have some type of understanding on what's going to happen with players that are seniors, what their eligibility is going to be like, how it's going to affect schools and rosters and roster sizes, recruiting. That's the other thing. When it comes down to it, the NCAA is going to need quickly to put things in place, safeguards in place, so schools will know exactly what to do recruiting wise. Not just the colleges, but high schools. Because are these kids going to be allowed to come in early to school in September, in January? Can they come in early? I know of at least, I've been told by 3 UNLV recruits that they are strongly considering coming early because they're not going to play football this year at the high school level. They're like, we're not going to play our senior year. We can come in early and get more work in early than we can late. Like staying in high school. We can go get with our college trainers, our college coaches, learning the offense. And that's a smart thing to do. There's no way I'm going to stay. No way. If I was a senior in high school and I signed to go play somewhere, I committed somewhere, honestly, I'm out. You will not catch me the second semester of high school. I'll be on campus getting ready to go compete for a starting job or playing time the next year at my university. And that's why I never begrudge any players for transferring, leaving school, leaving college early, or leaving high school early. Because the whole point of high school is to go to college so you can be prepared for life, right? That's the whole point of it. The whole point of going to college is to prepare you for your career in whatever field that you're going to play in, correct? Well, if I'm a redshirt sophomore, junior, or senior, or redshirt sophomore, junior, because seniors you got to go. I'm sorry. In no way in hell if I'm going to be drafted in the first 3 rounds of the draft, especially as a junior, I'm out. I'll take my chances. There's more money I can make there than I'm making at the university. Real talk. Today on the Dan Patrick Show, they asked the NCAA if football players from the Pac-12 and Big Ten could transfer to Big 12, ACC, and SEC schools and play immediately, assuming that they play. They said that also is going to be talked about at the D1 Council meeting today, and they'll have eligibility figured out within a week. I tell you, it's a mess. It's a mess, but you know what? It's sports. It's our mess, so gives us something to talk about. A lot of good things happening today. Just not a lot of local sports in Las Vegas. Schools open up, hearing that they're having some issues with the online stuff. So hopefully CCSD can get that figured out. Let's see what we have on tap on the franchise today. Chris Gallick has his recap ready to go on VGK. We have Nishan Zaragoza's Raider notes and news that's coming out today. If you missed it yesterday, this week in baseball, COVID and arm injuries by Josh Rushford. That's a really good article, too. Really good series if you missed out on it. those are the things that the best things that we have right now. And then obviously you can go listen to this show again, which, okay, if you do that, like, I love you, grandma and mom, and appreciate you listening like that. Also, be on the lookout for the 70213 Lakers podcast, which drops this evening as well. That's a good one, talking about the Lakers. Very entertaining show. We actually get Kyle Randolph to curse a lot. We got him fired up about Paul George. Oh, it was glorious. He dropped the F-bomb like 3 or 4 times, and in the almost year I've known this young man, he's never said a bad word in his life. Sadly, I think we're rubbing off on him. Oh, boy. Anyway, guys, thank you for joining the show. We appreciate you, everybody at Franchise Sports Media, myself. You guys are great. And again, keep clicking the links on the franchise. Follow us on all social media at the Franchise LV, or me at Joe Arrigo, ARRIGO, on Twitter. And you guys are great. Hopefully you guys are safe. Mask up, take showers. And even when it's 110 out today and the sun's beaming down on you and you're sweating and you can't go to a pool party, or you can't go wherever it is that you want to go because of COVID and social distancing and not being able to be in places, it still would be a great day to arrest the killers of Breonna Taylor. Have a great day, everybody.